or sysadmin. But tonight I'm going to be talking about deploying Symfony2 applications on AWS opsworks. So, in case somebody doesn't know, Symfony is a PHP framework, and opsworks is a DevOps tool. It's a part of Amazon Web Services. It allows you to easily deploy your applications into fully customizable, configurable, and scalable environment. Not like other easy-to-use tools which are blocking you and then you have to migrate somewhere else. So a bit of history. Opsworks was created by German company. It was independent tool that was working on Amazon Cloud. Last year it was bought by Amazon, and this year it was launched as Amazon Opsworks. The previous name was Scalarium, so it indicates that it was about scalability. Why did Luft choose Opsworks? Basically, this is the question why I choose Opsworks, because I made the choice. So, I'm a perfectionist, so I wanted a perfect solution where I can configure everything. It scales, I have continuous deployment, continuous integration, yes, everything. But I couldn't do this. And also, timing is a constraint, and I'm not system administrator, so I couldn't. Then my colleague, who is here, Rick, showed me Scalarium, and not enough showing, he started to configure our application on Scalarium. It was so simple that I knew this is it. It was wonderful, thank you, Rick. So, yes, how to deploy your app on opsworks. I have to switch a slide, but it's on this computer. Yes. First, you have to create a stack. Stack is a container for your servers, so you can have production stack, test stack, and other stack you want to. On your stack, you have different layers, like there will be that way, so it's not vertical. Yes. Symfony2 applications. So first layer you need is PHP application layer. It's predefined on opsworks, so you just start that one with one server at the beginning. Opsworks will boot it up for you, install everything. It will provision Apache, PHP, web server. Yeah, Apache is a web server, yes. Everything. And then, if you want to add more than one PHP node, you need this layer, load balancer. That will direct a request to one of your layers. This is basically for your scalability. On opsworks you can choose HA proxy or Elastic Load Balancer. Then your application probably uses some database. Yes. So, oh no, I've got one layer here and one layer here. Yes, MySQL. So opsworks supports only MySQL as data source out of the box, but you can customize everything, so you can create your own layer with any data source. On GitHub you can find configurations for any database you want to use. Last layer is memcached. Very useful if you want to have more than one PHP node. By default, when you in your Symfony and on opsworks, your PHP session will be stored in a temporary directory on your web server. So when you have two nodes and it's stored on your web server, it won't work. You know it. If not, I just told you. Then, performance-wise, the best solution is to store your session in memcached. That's why I started. Yes. Instances. You create a lot. You can create a lot of application PHP application nodes and make them auto-scale on time or load basis. So here we've got a sample configuration. Let's say I created 10 instances of my PHP node. One is always on, 9 of them are auto-scaling. That's the sample configuration. Here, when my CPU load goes over 80%, another instance will boot up. So then I have 2 of them. When on 2 of them, our CPU load is over 80%, third one will boot up, and so on. So the last thing you need to do is tell opsworks where your application is. You can check out your application from Git, SVN, you can download it from an archive, any way you wish. So then everything is configured, you press deploy. It should work, it won't work. Because once you check out your Symfony application, you need to configure it. You need to install your assets, libraries, all the stuff. So, to do this you are using recipes. As you can see on the screen, these are example recipes for a PHP application layer. At the top you can see built-in chef recipes. So the ones that are being run by opsworks on your PHP node. On the bottom you add your own recipes. So basically you tell these recipes what needs to be done. On a life cycle, you've got 5 life cycles. So life cycle 1 is setup. So what's being run when you start your server. Configure, what's being run on any change in your stack. So new PHP node boot up, or your MySQL server was restarted. All servers will run configure recipes. Deploy, on deployment, undeploy shutdown. So first thing we did at Fluft was add our recipes where we run composer install our assets, configure our application, to deploy lifecycle. And it worked and it didn't work. Why it didn't work? The issue is how opsworks works. It checks out your application, and when it's being checked out, it switches vhosts to work with your new checkout, with your new build. And then it runs its recipes after it switched the vhost. So first, your application server is using your new checkout, and then your recipes where you configure applications are being run. So there's a downtime. It doesn't work because the order is wrong. And it's a missing feature in opsworks. You actually can't fix it in this nice graphical user interface. Maybe some of you know how to fix it, I don't know. So we fixed this by using deployment hooks. Deployment hooks are not available on this interface. These are chef scripts that you have to add to your application. There we've got one more lifecycle before symlink. So then we can do what we want to do. So opsworks check out new version of our application. On deploy, it runs our chef recipe where we install assets, configure, do composer install, and then it switches our vhost to use new checkout. So then it works, yes. Now your application works.
Is that just the deploy there? Sorry, that runs in the wrong order. The deploy step?
Yes.
Is that the only bit that runs in the wrong order, or does it run everything and then the custom bits?
What's being run in the wrong order is that first it deploys your application, the built-in chef recipes, that once, then it switches the symlink, and then it runs your recipes.
Does it run the setup recipe after it switches the instance?
No, it runs deploy
okay.
recipe.
Yeah.
that one, but you need to run. You want to run that one before it switches the symfony. I can explain you after the presentation once again. I see you understand, but yes, I'm happy to explain. Yes. Next thing. You need to configure your application. Your PHP server needs to connect to MySQL, Memcache. How do you do this? It's not on any slide. Also, in our recipe for lifecycle before switching the symlink, we use chef templating engine. We take parameters YAML dist. In this chef recipe, we've got access to deploy variable which contains all the configuration data of your stack. We fill in the PHP YAML dist with this data. We create parameters YAML. Then it works. Another issue we had is that opsworks doesn't support AWS identity and access management. So we've got two stacks, production and test. Only chosen ones got access to production environment. And everybody who's a developer got access to test stack. You cannot do this with opsworks. Yes, you can. So we had to create another AWS account. We've got one AWS account for test stack, second one for production. Not really a good solution, especially when, we use it so it works. But especially when you want to synchronize data between your production and test, then you've got a lot of configuration, how to access one stack from another. It would be much easier to have this on one account. And I hope they're gonna fix it. Next one. Cache. We wanted full page cache. It's not being supported by default by opsworks. So as you know, to have full page cache, we need reverse proxy cache before load balancer. So all requests has on port 80 have to go to your reverse proxy cache. So to do this, we installed Nginx in our case, but you can use anything. On the load balancer server, default load balancer, we switched that one from port 80 to port 81, and Nginx runs on port 80. If the if the page is in cache, it returns a page from cache. If the page is not in cache, it redirects the requests to load balancer to the backend. Works perfectly. So, to sum up, advantages of opsworks. It's very easy to use and gives you full control over your infrastructure. It's very elastic. It's the easiest tool that gives you this control. Second, using Amazon Cloud prevents you from having a hardware single point of failure because you're on the cloud. Any instance dies, new one will boot up, and everything should work. There are some issues with opsworks. While fixing these issues, we discovered that there is opsworks support forum. It's free and it works really well. They answer our questions and they solve the issues. They develop the tool. It's being well supported. Opswork is free. Only thing you pay for is your EC2 instances. Yes. Disadvantages. Yes, we don't like Chef. There is old version of Chef running on opsworks. It is very hungry for resources. We had deployments failing because Chef was using too much memory. We need to do some cleanups, especially for these deployments not to fail. So it's not brilliant. Costs. If you buy a dedicated server from other vendor, it will probably be cheaper, unless you use the auto scaling feature of opsworks a lot. Then Amazon may be cheaper. Vendor lock. the more you configure your app on opsworks, the more you're locked to them. Not like OpenStack, which you can move anywhere. You've got access to recipes. If you really try, you can put up your own server, copy all recipes, install Chef on your own server, and have your own copy of opsworks. But I don't think you would like to do this. There's many disadvantages. Yes. One more disadvantage. Only 2 operating systems to choose from. Ubuntu 12.04 and Amazon Linux. That's all. Okay, so this is our experience. I think I made a good choice. My colleague Nunu thinks I made a wrong choice. So you have to decide by yourself. Thank you for your attention. Now there's going to be similar presentation by Rick about his experience with Symfony on opsworks or his own framework on opsworks in workflow, and then there's going to be joint questions session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, bear with me. I'll make this do its magic. I'm Rick Hayward. I actually work at Photobox, but my spare time project is Workfoo, which is a sort of social recruitment platform that allows people to build themselves a profile and find work in the tech industry. So it looks a bit like that. And one of its key functions is that it has huge numbers of social networks that you can link up to your profile to allow you to do stuff. But all of this is written with in PHP with a good chunk of that as sort of Symfony components under the hood. And we use opsworks to host the whole thing. So how does that actually help us? Firstly, because this is something I sort of do in my spare time, it's not a full-time thing. The fact that I have to spend no time at all maintaining the servers is a real big win for me. Like Thomas, I'm not a DevOps guy. I can go and fiddle around with configs of bits and pieces under the hood on the servers, but it's not really my strength and not really my area. So this lifts a lot of that, does a lot of the heavy lifting for that. But it also does a lot of neat things on the side with the scaling up and the scaling down on load that Thomas showed you. We can set up our system so that it will automatically build out new instances whenever the load comes up, and then destroy them again, which is actually quite a useful additional feature when the load goes away. So we're only actually paying for the instances that we actually need at any given time. And because we're quite UK based and a bit in the US, but mostly the UK, we have a very clear sort of time of day cycle. So we collapse back to a very low cost infrastructure for a good 10 hours of the day, and then it can scale out during the times when it gets busier. Going back actually, the other thing there is replacing broken instances. That's actually a bit of a killer feature as well. Normally, if something crashes on your server, it breaks, whatever the reason, there's about 10,000 reasons why that can go wrong. And on EC2 as well, that can go wrong just because Amazon wants to do some maintenance on the thing, and you get an email saying, "Oh, one of your instances is going to break." I can just ignore those because I don't have to care. And what it does is the opsworks monitors all your servers all the time, and partially to do this sort of load balancing, scaling up and down, but also to detect that they're still there. And if it can't talk to them anymore, it just assumes that something's gone wrong and just deletes it completely. So it doesn't try and repair it or go in and fix it or anything. It just deletes it and says, "Amazon, we don't want that anymore. Take that away," and just goes and creates a completely new one from scratch. So that just sorts out all kinds of problems that you can have along the way. So our infrastructure looks kind of similar to Flute's. We have a load balancer out the front. We have app servers with PHP on them. We typically have somewhere between 1 and 5 instances on there, depending on load. And then we have a database instance. So really we've got, so on our minimal setup, we have 3 physical instances, well, physical in the cloud sense. But we'll have up to 3 on sort of minimal and more on busy points. But we do set up quite a lot of different layers that get installed across those instances. So one of the nice things that opsworks does is allow you to separate that. That sort of there's a separation from the actual machines the instances that you get and the stuff you put on them. So the layers that Workfood uses, we have a load balancer layer, which I think is HA proxy. We have a PHP instance, which ends up storing PHP and Apache. There's a MySQL layer, which is MySQL, and a memcache layer, which we keep separately, which I'll come back to. Then we use RabbitMQ for our queuing system, for dealing with sort of background processing work. We have a separate layer, which is the queue worker, which pulls things off of the queue and does work with them. We have Sphinx for our search, which is a full text search system, and we keep that as a separate layer as well. And then we have one which is just called Cron Master, which is just for doing donkey work, just triggering donkey work around the back at given times of day. So, for instance, today it's Thursday. We send out an email on Thursday mornings to people if there's jobs that have been posted that are relevant to their skill set, and so that's sort of triggers that process. And that's what that typically does. All this typically does is throw a message into the queue here, and then the queue worker eventually finds it and starts sending emails to people. So we break this up like this and put those onto those instances. So if we picture we've got the 3 instances, load balancer instance just has load balancer on. We don't really put anything else on there, so that's one of them gone. The database instance, our database is actually quite light load, so we can put a few things on there. So we put MySQL on there, and we put Rabbit on there, and we put Sphinx on there. If at some point in the future that's causing pressure on our servers, we can break that apart and fire up different instances for each of those tasks. And then all the other things go onto the PHP application layer, which scales. So so we end up with a memcached on every PHP instance. So as we build out more application instances, we end up with more memcache memory, and we also end up with more queue workers as we get more instances. And the Cron Master one actually only goes on one of them, which is sort of the one that never dies, and that just keeps that working. So overall, we get to have quite a sophisticated looking infrastructure with very little maintenance effort and very little actual energy from my end to actually make it happen. And that's pretty much how it works. And that was I last fiddled with that probably 3 or 4 months ago. I haven't had to touch it at all in 3 or 4 months, so it does work. And that's it.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions that we can answer?
Yeah, none of those ones that we can't answer, we're not interested in.
So what was is it Flute's? What does it do? And have you got some like how many instances does it scale to?
Yep.
Oh, can I?
I was just going to take a picture. Just switch your 2 seconds. Alright.
No, I can do this. What's Fluft? I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna open new tab, not to show all
My
colleagues' emails.
connected to anything.
Yes, so Fluft.
Like yours.
Fluft is. We don't need the internet. Fluft is a startup with crowdsourced education content for students. We don't have many users yet. We are ready for many users. So basically, we don't scale it. We are ready to scale. And we're hiring. So if you want to work with Symfony2 and opsworks and with wonderful CTO, then please contact me. full stack developers. Yes,
What sort of size instances are you using?
I would need to log in and show you. Oh, thank you, Rick. It is always a question that is being asked, but nobody ever remembers because it doesn't. Because yes, up to M1 medium for our PHP node on production, because we've got RabbitMQ there that I didn't talk about, not to make the talk too hard. So the question was, what instances are we using? The highest one is M1 medium, and up to some small ones for on test server. On test stack we then combined a few layers on one node. This is a new feature of opsworks. So on test server we want to have low costs. So actually there's PHP node and Nginx, load balancer, MySQL, and memcached are on one, I think, small instance.
Oh, okay.
On Workflow, the load balancer is a small, all the PHP app layer is medium, and the database is on large.
Could you run HA proxy on a T1 micro?
You probably could. I just have the fear. So,
No, that's
I've run production node servers.
Can you run-
So
yeah.
you'd be surprised what it can do.
Can you run HA proxy on T1 micro? That was Nigel's question. The answer is no. When you use Chef, no.
You mentioned a few times about things that you couldn't do using the graphical user interface. So what is the other mechanism available to you?
it's the Amazon API, there's the command line API, so you can do pretty much anything from there. Well, in fact, you can do everything from there. They've only done the user interface on the web app for some of the functionalities.
That's right.
Have you tried CloudFormation for your stack configuration?
Have we tried CloudFormation for our stack? No, I didn't.
No.
It's quite good there. It gets over a lot of your gripes with like IAM roles and sort of it's a lot more customizable in terms of what instances you want to type. Like if you want to, you can use your own AMIs and things like that. That I think.
Yes, CloudFormation is a competition to opsworks bought by AWS, so it's a nice competition. Yes.
So how do you test that all this works?
How do we test if all this works? We are in the process of introducing continuous integration automated testing with Behat, Ming, Jenkins, but at the moment we don't. Manual testing still.
One of the quite cool features of this though is once you've defined your stack with all the different layers and instances on it, there's just a clone button. You can just go join and make a complete copy of it, and then just boot that up. So it's very easy to have. I mean, the Flu sounds like they're not using having a second copy for user access reasons, but for me that's not an issue. So I just have a second copy of everything, and I just boot that up when I want to do some testing, do my testing, and then kill it, just kill the whole stack. And so if I want to do some testing for 2 hours, I can do that and only pay for 2 hours worth of servers. But the beauty of that is that it's completely identical to your live stack. So it's very reliably accurate test environment.
Yes, so the question was how do we test, and I think I didn't understand what test means.
So how do you test scaling works?
There isn't an artificial way of persuading it to expand out, but you can just set the load levels to low. So you can say if the load goes over, 6% or something, go and build another instance. But you can just hammer your own site. You can go and there's plenty of tools out there that will go and throw a ton of traffic at your site. So you can set it all up and then go and throw some artificial traffic at your site and watch it do it. And you don't have to have it go up one at a time. You can specify that. So if you're both of us aren't on huge scale sites, but if you're on a much bigger scale, you can bump up at 5 or 10 instances at a time if you need to. but yeah, you can sit there and watch it in the user interface, scaling out and scaling back down again, which is quite cool.
Does it handle, so you do an upgrade and you want to take half your servers out, put the other half in with the new upgrade, but keep these in reserve to switch blank, or something similar to that kind of scenario? Does it handle that, or do you just click, here's a new version, off you go?
What, for deploying a new version of your software,
Yeah.
say? Well, there we just deploy it, and it will deploy it to all instances. It sounds a bit frightening having half of your servers on one version of the software and half on another version.
Or just so that you don't end up flipping between the two because you get load balance between different servers?
Well, because it operates, you could create multiple instances and flip the DNS if you wanted, but never really done that. You can, because it's done through our deployment happens through Git essentially, so you can just roll back through that mechanism. When you deploy, you don't have to deploy to the latest version. You can deploy to any of the versions in your stack, so you can your history, so you can go that one bit, and it'll go deploy that out. And there is a rollback mechanism. I don't think I've ever used it. Have you ever used it? No, because it keeps the way it sort of works under the hood is it goes and pulls all the code out of Git and puts it in a new folder, and then when everything's ready, it flips a symbolic link from wherever it was before to the new one. So suddenly all the traffic's getting the new version, and that was one of the problems that Thomas was having, where it did some of the steps after it did that switch, after it did that flip. So you usually have, I can't remember how many versions it keeps about the last 5 versions of your five deployments, so you can go back to the previous ones instantly.
Yes, it keeps 5 versions of last deployments, but we delete them and we just keep 2 because we had memory issues because of it. Because it does some stuff with your previous versions and it uses more memory than.
And were you saying that all your configuration is in the cloud as well? Is that on their servers or on your Amazon instance?
Yeah, the configuration is really done through Chef. So, say your PHP ini file, for example, that's sort of a template inside your Chef scripts. And so if you go and change some setting in there, you change that, press deploy, and it goes through all the instances and recognises that your PHP ini file is now different and copies the new one over and knows to restart Apache and all the other crap that it has to do to make that work. And it just sort of takes care of that.
And I haven't used Chef, that's all on the cloud?
Well, it's just a tool that runs on the instance you've created, so that's installed as part of it.
So where do you hold your master in file?
In GitHub.
Oh,
So pretty much, so it's part of the. So there's two real components of it. There's your recipes, your Chef recipes, which are what to install and what the configuration is to install with them, and your source code for your app. So and you can actually have multiple applications on it, but so you have an application which is go and get it from this Git repository, and you have here's all my configuration for my servers, for my stack, and that's in this repository.
The Chef client needs a serverless, isn't it?
No, there's a version of Chef called Chef Solo, which is what they actually use. So it doesn't. I don't even know if there's an option to use the client server version.
How do you tell this user interface where to get your Chef Solo JSON
You give it. You would say if you're getting it from GitHub, you say I'm getting my stuff from Git. And it's a Git repository, and here's the URL of the repository, and you can provide the credentials so that you can provide SSH keys to it so that it if there's a private repository.
So do you use Chef for everything, or do you have something like Ant for like making the vendors, getting the vendors down from Git and like?
I use Chef for everything.
Okay.
You also use Chef of everything.
So Chef can ultimately just go and run some shell script stuff on your instance
Sure.
at the end of the day. So I mean, that's pretty much what it's doing anyway. So
Yeah.
so you can go and use them. tool that you can use and chefify it.
Sure.
Yes, so there is a bit of a mess because our infrastructure and application configuration are in one cookbooks repository, all in one. Could be separated infrastructure, application,
Yep.
one for developers, second one for sysadmins. No, it's not there.
Sure. And do you think you mentioned before that Chef you didn't like Chef, but have you come accustomed to it over Puppet? Or what do you find is the most difficult difference between the two?
I think the main problem is that on opsworks they're using quite an old version of Chef. It's about 2 years out of date.
Right.
And so quite often you can go and say, right, I need to install hot shiny new thing, and go find a Chef recipe for doing that on what's code or somewhere, and it doesn't work because it uses 12 shiny new features that came out in the last 2 years of Chef. So they keep saying they're going to be upgrading that any day now, and then but it hasn't happened yet. So the main pain point is just getting them get to grips with Chef. If you've not done anything with Chef before, it's a learning curve like nothing on earth.
More than Puppet, then.
Yeah, well, it's basically the same. Puppet's a branch of Chef from.
Right.
They have a common ancestor.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, didn't realise that.
Do you think there's any jobs for sysadmins anymore, or is it all going to be automated in the future?
It's all going to be automated. No, there's plenty of opportunity for this, because managing this is still a task. Creating that infrastructure in the first place is still a task, and maintaining it. And I think it's going to move more. I think that perhaps will switch, perhaps less to dealing with the physical bits of hardware and things on it, to the monitoring and the feedback you're getting from those, and responding to stuff more quickly, rather than the low level setting this config file up type of stuff.
You mentioned a bit earlier about the costs. Do you think Amazon pays off, or would you stick with hardware of your own?
Don't ask me. The question is, does Amazon pays off? Not for us, because we don't scale yet, so it will be much cheaper to just buy a dedicated server from other vendor. I believe that if we're gonna scale, it's gonna pay off.
You might even have to get load balancers and failover and all that. Even with all that, unless you scale, you think Amazon's more expensive?
I didn't understand.
Well, I guess.
Just say yes.
So your stack.
Very good question. Yes. I'm sorry.
That's fine. You seem to got quite a complicated stack there, and I think this question always comes up with Amazon is people see the price per minute and they go, oh, actually that's like loads of money.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that buying a dedicated server off the vendor would be cheaper?
I'm sure of it.
Wouldn't you have to buy 10 servers just to equal your stack in Amazon, and then another 10 failover in some other country in another data center?
Then it depends. We would need to count this really excellent stuff.
That's the same argument as wouldn't it be cheaper just to buy programmers from the cheapest country of the month? Wouldn't it be cheaper to buy servers from the cheapest supplier of servers? And what you're missing out is the fact that Amazon and similar cloud providers give you the ability to use the incredibly long lever that is software to enable you to automate all of the things that you could previously only scale by sending thousands of Madagascan pygmy system administrators out to plug patch cables in and install Sonos.
Well, I mean, I guess that was my point is I wondered how this total cost stacked up.
Well, for me,
you can buy a single server more cheaply, but can you buy all the infrastructure that you need to run a scaled web app more cheaply?
For me, the cost
This is the
the
infrastructure.
Yeah. For me, the cost is the difference in cost is so negligible. It's not worth me thinking about it, because I know I would have to spend some time dealing with maintaining my own servers. And usually when you're getting your own dedicated stuff like that, you have to pay much longer term. So in the past when I've done that, it's sort of 12-month contracts or things like that. And with this, if I decide I don't want to do this anymore, I can just switch it off tomorrow and I'm not paying a cent anymore. And if it suddenly becomes the thing of the moment and I get 10 squillion people come and use it, I can cope with that, and I don't have to suddenly scrabble about and redesign everything and write tons of it, and it'll just work. So I'm sort of comfortable in the position that it's not costing me very much to run now, because the hosting costs are actually very low overall, and if it scales up to a much bigger level, I can follow that. And probably what I'd do if I got to having one where I had tens of servers, I would look at spinning some of those out into dedicated instances somewhere else and start doing stuff like that as a cost saving thing. But yeah, I'm away from that, so I don't really like that.
So you mentioned OpenStack before as a alternative where you could actually host it elsewhere. And I'm not entirely familiar with how many other elsewheres there are for OpenStack. I know that Rackspace invented OpenStack, and then like open sourced it, and then supposedly others have. But what's the difference in, like, I guess you may not have compared the pricing between OpenStack solutions and Amazon and the cost benefit.
Well, I had a bit of a look at that. Amazon is genuinely on the cheaper end of things. So,
is it?
Yeah, but for the smaller stuff, don't really need it. There are other solutions other than opsworks out there. Probably the biggest one that a lot of the sort of larger scaling things are using is called RightScale, and that works in broadly a similar way. You define your infrastructure with scripts, and it goes and deploys them. But that one isn't linked to any given infrastructure, so you can be sitting there today with your own servers on Amazon and decide you don't like Amazon anymore, and say, right, tomorrow morning we're going to be on Azure, we're going to be on Rackspace. We've got about 5 cloud places, and we've heard 3 or 4 of them. There'll be some you go, I don't know who they are, but they must exist somewhere. And that's quite handy for moving around the world as well.
Right. So for the lock-in, Amazon is actually cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not bothered about the lock-in because my stack isn't very complicated, and I know if I want to move, it costs me some time to rejig it somewhere else. But
Sure.
It wouldn't be hugely, it wouldn't be a huge burden.
Sure.
So I'm just leaving where it is now. Wait for that point to hit me.
Okay, any more questions? One more question.
I had a question before. When you were speaking about paying for a few hours of testing, so do you pay by the hour for the instances, or is it a daily contract?
Amazon's by the hour.
By the hour.
Or part hour. So if you fire up the instances for 2 hours, you only pay for 2 minutes at least. The servers are using it about 10, 15 minutes an hour. So if you've got 4 servers that fire up for 2 hours, it's only costing you 60p or something. So you just don't care.
That's great. Thanks a lot, guys.